Hi, I'm Ivan Oransky. I'm the Vice President and Global Editorial Director of MedPage Today here in New York. I hope that some of you joined us for part one of our discussion with Christie, the U.S. country head and president of Novartis Pharmaceuticals Corporation. In the second segment, Christie and I talk about what's in the Novartis pipeline, what that could mean for medical practice and clinical outcomes. We'll talk about some really interesting projects that Novartis has going on, one of them being a collaboration, a partnership with a big name in Silicon Valley, and one that really sort of speaks to what a lot of pharma companies are trying to do to innovate. And finally, we'll talk about some of the challenges that Novartis is facing with Alcon, a very large division. In terms of innovation, I'm curious, you have something like 140 plus compounds in the pipeline. What excites you the most? What is sort of up and coming that, maybe it'll be as big as Entresto, maybe it'll be something different, maybe it's a smaller population. What's exciting to you?
So it is really a transformational time in the U.S. today. You think about innovation and you think about the changes that are happening, demographic shifts. We now have 18 to 34-year-olds are the biggest population in the U.S. And their expectations are much different than if you look at the older population where every single minute 7 people are turning 65. And they're living with multiple chronic illnesses. They say the baby boomers actually by 2030, 6 to 10 of them will have multiple chronic illnesses. So we're really focused not on just lengthening life, but making sure that those years of life are high quality. And so last year, FDA approved more new molecular entities than they had since 1996. And with Novartis, we had 12 approved this year. And some of the really big highlights for me is Entresto, our first indication, which is in heart failure, reduced ejection fraction. We have a study which is called Paradigm Study. We have Paragon, which will be the other 50%. So all heart failure patients will eventually, hopefully, be candidates for Entresto. And the number of lives that we help stay out of the hospital and live longer is enormous. We have Cosentyx, which was approved this year for psoriasis, and we find that it's almost completely clearing the skin. 90% of the skin is cleared, and these patients who have been isolated at home, wearing long sleeve shirts and long pants in the summertime, are sending us so many letters. They're thanking their healthcare practitioners of just how good they feel about themselves now and able to get out in public. And with Cosentyx, we have submitted to the FDA more indications in the rheumatology arena. So psoriatic arthritis is a big one, and also SPA. We were just at the American College of Rheumatology, so big excitement there as well in the pipeline. So taking the molecules we have, continuing to study them. Also in cancer, we look at Novartis being one of the top companies in targeted therapies. Couple that now with immuno-oncology, where we'll have 6 agents in the clinic this year, 2 more next year. Taking the immuno-oncology, combining it with the targeted therapies, we feel we have a great platform for patients, cancer patients, in the future to really help more broadly than we are today.
Immuno-oncology is, of course, a huge and growing field. And do you feel that you're well positioned there in terms of your pipeline, in terms of what you're bringing to market?
I do. I will say that we were a little bit behind the other companies, but we're catching up really fast. Because of the number of agents we have, those have come from NIBR, which is our Novartis Institute for Biomedical Research, but they've come from the collaborations as well. 3 small biotech companies, BMS and Merck, large pharma companies that we've partnered with, and because of our broad range of targeted therapies, plus these collaborations and our own research institute, I think we're very well positioned for the future.
One of the things that Novartis has done that has caught a lot of people's attention is to partner with, some might say, unusual organizations, certainly with universities, with academic medical centers. But there's one that you might say caught my eye, and that was with Google. You actually have a pretty cool partnership I was hoping you could tell us a little bit about in terms of the Google Lens or the
Sure.
Yeah.
So, the collaboration piece, innovation is great, but if you can collaborate, you can drive innovation faster. So putting all the great minds together, especially when you're talking about cancer, our collaborations are really strong, whether it's with small biotech, we have some with large pharma companies, some with many other institutions or companies. And we also do it with technology. And so we have a few partnerships on technology. One of them is the Google Lens. And that will hopefully help patients who have older patients that have vision problems with their vision, and also for diabetes, you can measure the glucose levels.
Heard about that?
Yeah. So an easier way than having to potentially, prick your finger all of the time, which, the nerves on your finger, as you all know, actually tends to be a lot more painful than sometimes the shot itself. So that's one of the partnerships. We have a few others. So one of the things we just did in San Francisco, we had for COPD, we had 50 different companies, including Google and Panasonic, come and really talk about adherence. What are the technologies that we could use for patient adherence? And out of that program, many of the companies actually have already implemented the ideas that came from that day. And so as we look at who are we collaborating with, it's not just the scientific community, it's really through technology more broadly.
The Google Lens sort of sounds like a very interesting product. To think that it could do something that really we wouldn't think of a contact lens doing, actually, testing for blood sugar levels, for glucose levels. It's part of Alcon, is that right? And I'm curious, what's going on with the Alcon division? How are you thinking about its future? What sorts of things are happening there?
So Alcon is the leading eye care business in the world, and it has three businesses. One is surgical, one is pharmaceutical, and one is vision care. And so as we look at that business, like the pharmaceutical business, it's been hit a bit with competition in terms of loss of exclusivity patents, et cetera, and is really in a reshaping of what the future looks like. Right now, Alcon spends over $1 billion every year on research and development. And so our expectation is we'll continue to be the leader in vision care and are very excited about the future of that business.